English.
Yeah. English.
Okay. First of all, on behalf of the International Institute for Peace, welcome. Thank you for coming to this small but I think very impressive event, at least from what I know from Maria, it will be very impressive. Maria Kulikovskas is coming from Ukraine, specifically from the Crimea, an area which is, has been occupied and annexed by Russia, where whatever you say to it politically, it's an illegal action, has been an illegal action. But Maria, from the meeting we had in Kyiv in Ukraine, is not somebody who now has a political fight because it's Russia, but is fighting for freedom, liberty of expression, and does it with art. Not polemically, not ideologically, but it's a statement of liberty and freedom, and it's a statement of art. And I think we will have another occasion when we have an exposition on Iranian artist who is here. It is very important to take art into the politically wider field because you can express different things. You can look a bit behind the scenes. It's not slogans. It's much more differentiated, the approach. And therefore we again and again try to do art and bring art into the game. We're very happy that you are here and that Georg, who is sitting here, has been the promoter and motor of inviting Maria, and we support him because I think this is a very important element of dealing with Ukraine. Before handing over to Stephanie, our director, just to mention that Ukraine is in the focus of our attention because what we see is injustice from different sides. What we see is discrimination from different sides. And what we see is daily killings. I just came from Paris when we had a discussion with foreign affairs experts, and they speak about Russia and Ukraine, and then on the panel which I was participating, I said, yes, it's all right. We have to think about sanctions and about Russia and all these elements, but in the end, the first things we have to do is to stop the killing, because every day, if it's only 2 or 3 people who are killed, but they are killed for nothing, because it does not change the situation, but they are killed. And I think we want to draw the attention to the Ukrainian crisis and the situation. Again, there are clear legal positions, and there is no legal justification for either annexing Crimea or for intervention from the outside in the eastern part of Ukraine. But we have to go beyond and to think, of course, how are people suffering? Because they're suffering more or less by action of both or all the sides, and how can we overcome the suffering? And to think more about these elements than just in the slogans of the media. I think it's very good that Maria is here and can present some of her ideas and a more sophisticated approach than just accusing the one side or the other side by doing what they do. So again, thank you very much, and Stephanie will make a small discussion with Maria, and then we will see how we can proceed in this kind of mixture of politics and art, which I think is a very, very exciting mixture.
So now it's up to me to start the talk with Masha. I hope I can say Masha to you, yes, because I already met her several times, and Masha is the cozy word for Maria in Russian as well, and in Ukraine as well. And what she said is what Hannes already said is that she has been born in Crimea, the Crimean Peninsula, which has been occupied now since 2014 by the Russian Federation. Not only she comes from Crimea, but she also comes from Kerch, which is now, as she also told me today, the place where they built the bridge to the Russian Federation, which is already open. I did not know that today.
14th of May.
Since the 14th of May. Masha is a very young artist, but she's very well known also in Ukraine. I just recently also met her in Budapest on an exhibition dealing with many different Ukrainian artists on the topic. What was it? Revolution?
Permanent revolution.
Permanent revolution.
Art, Ukrainian art today.
Okay, Ukrainian art today. Maybe you can. No, what I also want to say is that she had numerous performances and actions and happenings already. She's a performance artist, but she also deals with architecture and with sculptures, and she has very different approaches towards art, like in a whole complex issue as it is. And she had several exhibitions in European cities, like, for example, I just want to mention some of them. One was in 2016, War and Peace, in Mariupol, on the 9th of May in London, solo exhibition, also in London, another one in 2016 called Happy Birthday, another one at the Venice Biennale on Vacation, White, Untitled, and several more are among them. What I would suggest right now is that I'm going to ask her some questions about what she experiences as an artist in Ukraine, dealing with art, also in times of war and conflict, just to get some idea what she thinks about what is going to happen there, how it is influencing you and your art. But I also would like you to take actively part afterwards in a discussion. We have Masha here, she's very open, she has a very bright mind, she's very reflecting, so I think it's could be very interesting for you also to ask several questions afterwards, and I think you're happy to try to answer them. Masha, you are, as we already heard now several times, a Ukrainian artist from Crimea, and you live now in Kyiv. As Crimea was annexed by the Russian Federation in 2014, why did you actually, was this the reason to go to Kyiv and not to stay, or what was the reason for you to leave?
No, I moved part-time, like partly to Kyiv when I was 15 years old. I started to study architecture and art in the college, like technicum or gymnasium, something like that. And during winter time I studied there, and then I returned every summer home, and I had my studio there and my parents, like all my family. And 2013 in summer I finished my master in National Academy of Fine Arts and Architecture in Kyiv, and I lived in student campus, so I didn't have place where to stay, and it was kind of like also a question for me where I will stay. In Kyiv it's quite expensive and hard, but I want to have my own studio, and maybe I should return to Kerch and work hard in my own studio and just like come to Kyiv when I have exhibitions. So I moved all my things, everything, my library, my warm clothes, everything what I had to Kerch, to my home, and I stayed last time when I was there, it was summer 2013 and October 2013. And then I came to Kyiv to build exhibition because I was nominated for Pinchuk Art Prize, and I stayed 1 month in Kyiv, and during the preparation started Revolution Maidan. And I was immediately involved into Maidan, very kind of like active, and since that I was not at home. So I was not at home when it happened annexation, because it was everything so quick and cynical. So, and I didn't return to Crimea after annexation simply because it was my political position not to support what happened there, and also my parents, they moved from Crimea. They left everything what we had, and they just came with their passports and with few things like warm clothes, and but we didn't get mostly any support, and that's why they returned to Crimea, because it was no place where to live, and what like how to support yourself.
Yeah. Would you say that the happenings had that they have been influencing your artwork, like what was going on since 2014? Have you also already been politically active before, or do you think it turned a little bit after 2014?
I think it turned more radical, of course, and more brutal even. I was critical always. I worked with my own body. I made casts of my own body and created from different like strange materials, and I always placed my naked female body or clones of my naked female body into the public space, which became a very political act as well. And I done several performances, but they were not maybe that radical that moment, but they became radical after annexation, because it was kind of like I don't know, like feelings that something will happen. But of course, annexation and beginning of the war and the crisis, kind of like ID crisis, like identification who you are. It affected me very strongly. Also, just 1 month before I became a displaced person from Crimea, I married with a girl in Sweden, and it was also our performance. We wanted to bring up discussion about positioning of female body and also LGBTQ rights and the possibility of choosing and borders, like we called our project Body and Borders. And you know, when we married, we thought from the beginning that it will be just simply artwork, performance, but then 1 month after the marriage, artwork, happened annexation and then war, and it turned into something different, because that was the possibility for me to save my documents. So art in a way saved me.
Okay, it's very interesting. When you say that you have been an IDP in Kyiv in the beginning, because you originally came from Crimea, did you have the feeling that, just maybe also for the explanation, after the crisis in Ukraine or the war in Ukraine in 2014, about 2 million people have been internally displaced. That's a huge number. 2 million people, most of them fled to Kyiv, not all of them, some of them also to the Russian Federation, but most of them fled to Kyiv. And also, as you said, that also Crimea always has been a little bit perceived differently in I would say, in Kyiv, also as, oh, they are already Russians. I mean, did you have the feeling that you have been discriminated against as a Ukrainian from Crimea, living as an IDP in Kyiv?
I will turn to 2003, when I arrived first time to Kyiv to study, and when I applied for my education and made my exams. I remember that the director of this gymnasium, he was very angry because at me he was very corrupt, I would say, and all the places for students were already fixed, and I done brilliantly my exams, and my grade was the top, and he was shocked because it means that he needs like cancel someone, and he had already agreement with maybe some parents, so he was like very nervous. And then when he invited me to his room, he's like, "From where are you?" I'm like, "I'm from Kerch." He's like, "But it's Russia, it's Moscow, go to Moscow." And that was very strange for me, because my mom, she's Ukrainian. Yes, my papa, he's from Siberia, but he identify himself as Ukrainian as well. And my parents organized several activities, and they were always very active for the Ukrainian language and for the rights, for human rights. And for all of us, it was very shocking, because in the capital we were represented as part of Russia. So then I realized that there's something wrong, and but I didn't have any discrimination personally during my education, because in Kyiv most of people speak in Russian language, and it was okay. People just came to me for the vacation, and Crimea was always like vacation area, and no one ever discussed actually in Ukraine about what's going on there. I always try to bring this discussion that we have strong Russian propaganda already there, we must be awake about this. But after annexation, something happened and changed, and I remember that several of time some of my friends who knew me for many years, some of my friends from Kyiv, they stopped communication with me, and I was very surprised because I'm the same person. I'm who am I, and I'm not kind of like Russian separatist or supporting Russia, but I just was curious why it's like, maybe it's also people have pain, or also it is very common discussion that if Crimean would not support Russia, then we would not have war. So quite big number of people blaming Crimeans, I would say. And nowadays, it is not popular to discuss about Crimea.
In Kyiv, in Paris. What are your family and friends, what are your parents telling you? I mean, you're not allowed to go back there, no?
No.
Why can you not go back there to visit?
I mean, I can try, but I probably will be arrested because several times Russian policemen, they came to our home, my mama told me, and they forced her to kind of like start process against me because I didn't get a Russian passport. It's illegal in Crimea by Russian law, which means that if I didn't get Russian passport during annexation, that I don't support Russia and I'm terrorist or separatist, which can be 10-20 years in prison in Siberia. And also my actions and performances can affect me, and I found my name after performance 254 when I lay down and covered by Ukrainian flag on the stairs in Manifesta. Just a few days after, I found in the internet in one Russian resources it called Forbidden Artist in Russia, and it was clearly my name and surname and all information about me, even what I forgot. So it was like everything. And also my mama, she said that even if they will not touch you, you can stay and you can be in Crimea, but then will be a problem if you will leave, if you will cross the borders. So they will let you come in, but probably they will not let you come out, or they can make even worse, they can make a lot of troubles for my family.
Okay.
It's very common punishment.
So to meet your family, I guess your parents, they have to come to visit you.
Yeah,
and,
we are acting in Kyiv.
And how do they come from Crimea? Do they fly, or how do they get to Kyiv?
No, we don't have anymore any official communication with Crimea. All trains cancelled and all buses cancelled. So my parents, they don't have their car. Simply they are quite old, and my papa doesn't drive anymore. My mama doesn't know how to drive, and so they must come from Kerch to Janko. It's a very small village. Nothing is working there, and then they come by train, and then they need to leave this train and take taxi or buses, something. You never know how much it will cost because it's like so corrupt. And then you come to Russian border, they check you. You're not allowed to have water, food. You have rights to have only one computer, a laptop, and one phone, and only personal clothes, nothing more, not more than 30 kilograms. And you're not allowed to have more than $10,000 with you, and no gold, only on your fingers.
Mm-hmm.
And also they can take away from you if they will think that something is not okay. And then you walk 7 kilometers under the very heavy sun, or if it's winter, like super cold. And then you came to Ukrainian border, and the same story. They check you, and they take money, whatever. And if they don't like something, they can return you. And then you must take some taxi to get to 30 kilometers to get to some train. And if you're lucky, you get some train, and then you go to Kyiv. So sometimes for my parents, it take 1 day to get to Kyiv, sometimes 2-3 days, you never know.
Okay, so the situation is still of concern, I guess, for you also, for all the families living in these areas. Maybe if we come back a little bit more to your artwork again, because we have here several, we put several pictures of, especially one project, which is one of the biggest one, I guess, you did in the recent years. In 2016, I had the chance to be there in Kyiv and to see the exhibition called RAFT Crimea. On your homepage, the project is described as to be dedicated to the first expedition of the migrant parliament of the displaced, the RAFT Crimea. Could you maybe tell also maybe our audience a little bit about the project? What was it about? What was on your mind what did you actually do, and what was the performance?
I got an idea to create my own peninsula, my own republic in 2015, but no one did support, and it was very hard for me to make this alone. And I kept this idea, and in 2016 I proposed to VCRC, this Visual Research Center, to build by own hands raft and go by this raft down by river and then cross. First I was thinking to go to Crimea, and then we decided to cross European Union, so kind of like make symbolical action that Crimea entered European Union, even it's occupied. And we started to develop this project, and then we decided, and also I would like to mention that I lived part-time in Sweden, and that moment in 2015, when I arrived thousands of people. It was crowd, it was in Malmö, it was like 100,000 people, refugees, displaced. And we were different nationalities, but we were the same, on the same level.
But you have been on that raft boat for how long?
3 days and 3 nights in the city center. Yeah. So I decided to find second-hand safety raft, and I lived there 3 days and 3 nights in the water in city center without water and food, only from the donations from people. And the idea was that they will show with their act sharing some resources with others, like showing solidarity and push away all the prejudice and like just showing empathy. And also I wanted that this spot, this orange raft will become as kind of like place for meeting people, even with different ideas and thoughts. And also I really wanted to kind of like show that we have 2 million, over 2 million displaced people, and they are invisible, they don't have voice. And it's so similar situation in the whole world. So I just wanted them to meet as well, because mostly you have no contacts with them. And I was surprised that quite a lot of organizations for human rights, they also started to do their activities around the raft. And some lawyers gave kind of like advices for free to IDPs, what to do with, what the next steps, how to deal with their documents. Because It is mess now with documents, with the properties in Crimea especially, and it's no banks, no posts, so you cannot do anything there, and the people just losing what they have. I think that it was also a lot of prisoners, political prisoners gave their lectures and we met, and instead it was not depressive or like, oh, poor us. It became like celebration in the end, you know, celebration that we are displaced people, that we are special, you know, or we are like, and also it's a reminder to others, because not that many people in Kyiv, in own country, know with what difficulties IDPs must kind of face.
Okay, so you're also tackling a lot of the issues now going on in your country with your artwork. I think it is at the heart of your artwork as well. What I also wanted to ask is that recently there have been several reports about increasing groups of Ukrainian right-wing nationalists in the streets of Kyiv. And I remember also as well that they have been raiding an exhibition at the VCRC of a leftist artist, and they completely destroyed it, and also very violently. And a similar thing also happened on an event which has been dealing with feminisms in the Ukrainian language, and people came in and also raided the whole event. And do you also have negative experiences with these right-wing, or what do you think? What are they? Where are they coming from? Is it a real problem, or is it exaggerating, or what is your opinion on that?
I think it is a problem, of course, but also, as we discussed a little bit before, that the problem that you really never know who they are. Some of journalists and some of people told me that it's just crazy people without any ideas, and they just get money from some oligarchs or rich people just to kind of like create bad image of Ukraine, to play for Putin games, you know. Also, some young people who is like not, I would say, well educated, or they don't know how to realize their potentials and their life. They accept this ideology and they just fighting for fights, you know. It's very common that it's hooligans, it's very common that it's just like they want like some crazy actions. And personally, I had once really bad experience with some right-wing organization, but I realized that they're just really stupid people. I mean, they have no idea, they don't know how to listen, they never been learned how to communicate and discuss, and they kind of like full of some ideology by some maybe more smart people who are controlling them. So it was in 2015 when me and other girls, we organized feminist movement, Flowers of Democracy, and we placed casts of vaginas into the flower spots, and it was kind of like, it called Flowers of Democracy. And I printed the t-shirts, it was like triangle, and inside it was also kind of like plaster vagina photo of the sculpture. And these guys, they had a very stupid argument. They hit one of the activists, and they destroyed all of the plasters, so all plaster vaginas, all the sculptures. And when we start like to discuss why you so angry, first of all, because they didn't like the name of the movement feminism. They don't like feminism. And when you ask why, they don't know why. Just they hate it. You know, they've been taught that it's bad. And also, they said us that plaster vagina is vulgar, so you must destroy. They know only violence language, and I think it is a problem, of course, and that's why I think it keeps me going to educate more people through some different way of like communication, art.
Do you think, because it's a lot of times it's said that the Russian propaganda is very, very huge. Do you also think that there's something like Ukrainian propaganda where these people tend to connect to, that maybe that this is part of why they are acting as they are, or?
I think that it's really hard now when you are critical, when you want changes for good. You must be critical, you must be awake, and you must look from different perspectives. You must be also critical to the power. And when you are critical, then it gives rights and it gives more power to Russia, and it also gives rights to your own power to blame you as pro-Russian, when you are not pro-Russian. So it means like when I'm critical, now, then the Ukrainian government maybe can see me as pro-Russian, but I am a victim, I cannot go even home because I'm against Russian politics. So you are kind of like in prison from both sides.
We've already been talking about a little bit the political situation in Ukraine, and especially also, I told you about a recent study of the study has been conducted, supported by the Friedrich Ebert Stiftung, and I noted down the New Europe Center Kyiv. And one of the main findings was that especially the young persons in Ukraine, the young people, Ukrainians, all over the country, in the West and in the East, they do not trust at all into politics. This is very interesting because it totally differs from other surveys when it comes to young people, especially also in Central Europe and in Western Europe. Do you also have the feeling that there is no trust in politics in Ukraine?
I don't trust.
Yeah.
And I'm not that old. But my students, all of them with who I'm working, they against power, what we have now, and they don't trust politicians. And now the kind of like people, young generation, they're so tired of all these problems. The main interest turned into something different. They became very creative. We have now a renaissance in a way also. We have so many different kind of like root activities, and young people just started the art spaces, open cafes or whatever. And also it's huge movement of techno music. It became as like new Berlin in a way. Also a lot of them interested in drugs because it's big trafficking. War, no one doesn't control so much what's going on. Also huge trafficking of prostitution and weapon. So I think that it's kind of like chaos. That's why not that many young generation really interested in it and believe in it. They have absolutely, they kind of like outside.
Do you think, another question I have, when it art in Ukraine, do you think art has to be political, or do you think art at all does not have to be political at all? Or what do you think?
I would say that art should not be propaganda for any kind of politicians or political movement or kind of like organizations. But what is being political? It means that working in the social, in the society, and we are not just like outsiders. We are living and working in the society. So you will become anyway political. But I mean, I don't like when art kind of like answer for some interest of some group. No, it should not be like that.
It should stand for itself. My next question is about the artist community in Ukraine, because Ukraine is a very big country, and I guess most of the artists at one point I probably guess you meet in Kyiv, or how is the connection within the artists? Is the connection the community of artists in Ukraine?
Actually in other places art doesn't exist, to be honest, because it exists mostly in the capital and also in Lviv. But by will of young generation, it started to spread around and decentralized. So it's like a lot of activities coming into small places. Also in east part near the kind of like occupied territory, it is a lot of activities going on, and also the huge festival of contemporary theater, maybe you heard Kulikovska, was in a small village just near the front line 2 months ago, like 1 month ago, and the like superstars of the theater, alternative underground theater from New York even came there. So it's like, people doing things maybe not visible so much, but also we have a strong, huge community in Lviv. But I don't think that it's still that perfect communication between us. More or less everyone is occupied by own things, and more or less it's concentrated in the big places in Kyiv and Lviv. That's all. Like, where is money?
Yeah.
Also, you wanted to ask me about language, I remember.
Yes, because a lot of people do not really know about the language issue in Ukraine, because for me it's, especially for us, we've experienced it several times, it's interesting that the language issue seems not to be a problem at all, because you said also earlier in Kyiv so many people are talking in Russian actually, and it's more or less even more than 50% people are saying, and then you have like more people talking Russian in the east than in the west. But the language issue is not a problem for the get-together for the Ukrainian society, or is it?
No, I would say that, for example, if you are taking bus in Kyiv, driver can be from some western part of Ukraine or like some small village, and you say like stop this station in Russian, and he can answer to you Ukrainian, and you will understand always each other, and it's very common. So I think it was created by Putin to manipulate with this, but also the problem, not the Russian language. I think that Ukrainian language doesn't have that big representation in Ukraine. Maybe that was the problem also, because, for example, I can return to this place, to the time when I was in Crimea, studying school. Already at that time it was strong Russian propaganda. My classmate, she was a class teacher, she was telling us every day that Ukrainian language is language of not developed stupid people. You should not talk, you should not even think about learning this language. And it was my parents fighting so long to get permission to learn this language. And for example, in Crimea, we got TV channels on Ukrainian language in 1998, 7 years after independence. So it was not big representation of Ukrainian language. But I think that like in everyday life, it is not a problem at all. We don't have prejudice against it. I mean, maybe me personally, I don't have any prejudice against any kind of languages. But in west part of Ukraine, not that many people speak in Russian language, and they can when they speak, you hear they have strong accent, and sometimes you cannot understand some words. So it's very different also.
it's probably also a form of empowerment now, what is going on with the new language law, so that education should be in Ukrainian until 2020, which is a new law. And it's also probably also about shaping a little bit the national identity as well, not only in the light of the conflict, but maybe a little bit also as well. I have one last question to you, and it concerns he's also an artist, his name is Oleg Sentsov, and he's imprisoned in Moscow, I think. No, where?
In Siberia.
In Siberia he's in prison, and now he's in a hunger strike. And
16 days.
Since 16 days. And I have the feeling that at least the community in Ukraine is very much lobbying for support for him. Do you have the feeling as well, or how is his case? Maybe you can also tell the people a little bit about Oleg Sentsov's case, because he's probably not so well known here in Austria.
He tried to organize the kind of like protest against Russia when it was annexation, and him and other people, more than 60 people, and they are.
He's also from Crimea.
Yes, he's from Crimea. He's film director, and he was captured by Russian militarians in Crimea, which is also sounds really surrealistic, because some police came to other country and they captured someone and then blamed for terrorism. So he is in the prison for 20 years. He blamed for 20 years in kind of like colonia, very strong, kind of like heavy kind of type of colonia for the terrorists and like murders and kind of like this. And he never changed passport into the Russian. He always had only Ukrainian passport. And he tried to protect his own country, but Putin said that it was legal to start the process against him and blame him as terrorist because he's Russian. And this is the problematic moment, because by Russia ideology and Putin law that if you was born in Crimea, if you register in Crimea, you are automatically Russian. So they can do whatever they want by their own kind of constitution. That's why they saw Sentsov as a terrorist, because he tried to organize several protest actions and many other also kind of activists. So when Crimea Bridge finished, 14th of May, Oleg Sentsov started his hunger strike, and he wants Putin to kind of like to all 60 people who is in prison, let them go, and him as well. But what I read last news, Putin even ignored when some journalists asked him what he will do with Sentsov, and Putin said that he's just terrorist, you know, he must have been in prison for 20 years. So I don't know what will happen, but I know him and he will go till end. So we try, in all people who is working in culture or somehow in media, we trying to push this situation and tell to everyone, just first of all, people to know that, you know, we have some heroes who is invisible and who is ready to die, but like this evil as Putin will never stop, probably.
Yeah, that's a huge campaign also, the Free Sentsov campaign.
Free Sentsov.
Yeah. Thank you very, very much, Masha, for the very interesting opinions you share with us. And I also would like you now, if you have some question or whatever, if you have a comment or a question about her life, what she's doing, about her art especially, please feel free and ask her directly. She will be happy to answer, I guess. And there we have our first commenter.
Yeah, I guess I have several questions which might be related, maybe not. So Your work is clearly politically driven. First question would be, is your entire work politically driven? Or is there some part, some niche in your work that you do and you don't think it's political? That would be the first question. The second question would be, since you're such a political artist, would you say the suppression in the Crimea would have made you more creative, your work more creative? So suppression once in a while brings new things about. So I guess after 2014 you changed as well, you became more political. Did you also become more creative? So, and the third question would be, if I push you, and don't answer now, it's yes, both. Would you consider yourself more a political artist or an independent artist?
Three very good questions for you.
I will say I will answer for third. I'm an independent artist, you know. I'm an artist. I'm not a politician, but I'm an artist, I'm a human being, and I'm a woman. This is what I would answer. And right now, and also I'm a conceptual artist, so it is very important, the history behind, and I'm like always searching deep into the idea of what I would like to say, not like just, you know, action or kind of like something for glory or fame, no. So for me it's very important to kind of like build very carefully strategy for each artwork, and like I'm working now more on the sculptures, and for materials what I'm using for sculptures, it's always it has always a lot of meanings with different backgrounds and historical aspects. And if I became more creative, I became more crazy, I think.
Can you elaborate on that one, please? What do you mean?
And I started to cross borders what maybe I would not cross, my own personal borders. And it's always question, very private question to myself, because I still have family, and there I must remember about them, and every word what I'm saying can affect them, and it happens several times. But it makes me so angry, so that's why I cannot stop probably.
Yes, please.
Aber ich hätte gerne auf Deutsch, weil mein Englisch ist nicht so.
Yep.
Also,
If she's going to translate, he's going to ask in German. Oh no, I translate.
also vielen Dank, dass du da bist und zeigst uns die Ausstellung, also schaut interessant aus. Und danke schon, dass du auch uns Aufmerksamkeit zeigst, und wir sehen, dass gibt's woanders andere Probleme, alles was wir hier haben in Österreich oder in Europa.
I probably understand.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but you can translate it.
No, so thank you very much for being here and for telling your things. Oh, it's difficult for me. What was the other thing you said?
And probably I showed different problems that you
Yes,
have in
very good. Yes, she knows some German. She knows some
I
German.
study
Yes,
in school.
Weil also hier haben wir also jetzt ganze Zeit mit der Flüchtlingskrise und Islamophobie, die verbreitet ist in ganz Westeuropa, und wir vergessen auch die nationale Ebene, wie wir hier in Österreich. Wir haben jetzt auch neue Regierung, die vielleicht genau wie Putin Kultur und Kunst und Gesellschaft so zerstückelt.
National artwork here as well.
Was ich immer hoffe, dass wir Künstler hier in Österreich, bekannte Künstler und Unbekannte, dass wir auch auf unserer nationalen Ebene auch Kunst und Politik machen können. Wir dürfen vielleicht bald auch nicht mehr.
We hope that they are still going to be able to make, as artists also in Austria, to make also on a national ground, to be able to really create art.
Und jetzt geht zu meiner Frage. Du und viele von deinen Kollegen und Kolleginnen in Russland und in Ukraine, die arbeiten viel gegen die Aggressivität von Wladimir Putin und seine Politik. Meine Frage, ob du Connection hast zu Gruppen und Künstlern, die genau den gleichen Weg haben wie dein Weg, weil also Künstler, die ihre Aufgabe beobachten und mit dem Finger zeigen, wo gibt es die Problematik. Ob du den Connection hast und arbeitet ihr zusammen, um die Problematik zu bearbeiten oder zu zeigen.
In der Ukraine oder
Ukraine und Russland. Ja. Weil gibt es diese Gruppe Biona, die bekannt.
So the question was if she and her colleagues in the Ukrainian and in Russia are still able to.
If you have a connection,
if you're cooperating
in challenging the way Putin is acting and is more or less preventing the freedom of art, and if you have some alliance or some connection to artists, well, you have in Ukraine, but if you have it also in Russia.
It's a very hard question. Actually, no. Personally, I'm not going to Russia until Russia will stop invasion to Ukraine and will kill our people. It's my clear political position, but I've done several collaborations with Russian performer artist, and it was very hard because even she proclaimed her anti-Putin and anti-dictatorship. It's hard, but they have still some kind of like imperialistic positioning of themselves, like Big Brother. And it's very common that they will tell you what to do and how. It's really hard to collaborate, to be honest, because collaboration and working together, it means that equal relationships. But when you are, as Ukrainians, saying them, please respect me as separate person, as other person, that equal, and actually motherland, in a way, was Ukraine of Russia, because everything started in Kyiv, Kyivska Rus, it was in Kyiv. So respect our history also, we had long history together. Still, in the end, sometimes you feel that it's kind of like prejudice, that you are still third class. And but at the same time, it's not with everyone. For example, I have great contact with researcher and intellectual people from Kazakhstan, for example, Kyrgyzstan. It was also part of Soviet Union, but they experienced being under the Russia, so it's more easy to collaborate with them, I think. Also, I have strong experience to work together with feminists from Russia, but it's strange. They're scared to come to Ukraine. They think that we will kill them or that we are nationalists, all of us, just because we want like free or stop war. So I had gallery in Russia, in Moscow, they represent me, and they risked invite me after annexation to create performance and show to people what's going on. But in 5 or 10 minutes after the beginning of my performance, they needed to close the door in Moscow. It was in Moscow because they were scared they will be closed. So sometimes it's not the question about our personal level, but sometimes if you want to come to Russia and say something what is going on for true, you don't get mostly any freedom to do this. And last year I invited my friend, she's a photographer from Moscow, and she has Ukrainian roots, and I was so happy that she came, because it took for me 3 years to prove that it's safe for her to come to Ukraine, because even she was anti-Putin and anti-Putin propaganda, but still she was believing that all of us are crazy, and if she is Russian that we will just kill her. So it was really hard to prove, like, please come, it's like we are the same, I still love you, you are part of my history as well, and you're part of my, surroundings. So sometimes it's really hard. And I can say personally, for example, my papa, he's from Siberia, and he has all his family there, and they against him, just because he chose Ukrainian side. He chose, and he's saying that it's illegal action what Russian doing. So his own mama said simply that you're not my son anymore. And it's very common like this. Mostly all families destroyed now. We don't have communication, and it's usually from Russian side. My papa tried to call to his mama several times, and she just stopped the communication, and she said, no, you fascist, you choose Ukrainian, and your daughter and your wife is a Ukrainian pig, I hate you. It's simply like this, it's brainwashing.
And how you found the West European artist as well?
West European?
Yeah.
I'm here, so we have a lot of support, and it's coming that more and more West European artists more curious what's going on there, and they come into us, and we again starting collaboration. The problem is always about money, because we don't have funding from the government. So everything what is like artworks or kind of like art activities, it's just by our own hands and our own money. I would say we work on the side and then invest our little money to create something. But like I try to build a bridge between, for example, Sweden and Ukraine, and Swedish artists get spoiled there, like, oh, where is my honorarium? And it's like several thousands of euros, and you're like, oh, I have budget, 500 euro for whole exhibition. So it's like, it's sometimes really hard, but still, it's not that discommunication. And also I would say that for some Ukrainian artists and for some Ukrainians who lost their families, for example, lost their maybe brothers and sisters in the war area, they don't want to communicate with Russians at all. They just don't communicate. So it is also can be very personal and very hurtful moment.
And over there, and over there. We start with you in the back.
Thank you, Masha, for coming to Vienna also. And I have two questions. The first one is when addressing political issues, do you think there are, or where you think are the limits of art in this field? And the second question is, what is your personal wish for the future of Ukraine?
I didn't understand you correctly, maybe the first question.
The first one, for example, when you address political issues through your art, there are limits, or not only limits like to interfere in real politics, but also is there a certain level where you think you cannot go any further?
Yeah, it's very common. People like, oh, okay, what you propose? But I mean, I'm not God. I have the same questions to all of you, how to finish all this chaos. But I know that we need healing, you know, all of us. And we need meeting. We need start a meeting point. We need to discuss. We need to question each other. Maybe sometimes forgive to each other something, or we just need to start the process of healing. And I think that art can be this meeting point when people from different places, from different backgrounds and ideologies can come and start communication. At least I hope for this, but I don't think that art can really propose the kind like, okay, do this and this and this, and then you will get this. It's also kind of like alternative reality where we can imagine, where we can guess and be kind of like maybe a little bit childish. So then we can kind of like dream about something beautiful, and then maybe this healing process will start. About it's great. About Ukraine and what I wish that half of population who voted for Yanukovych many years ago, and half of population who don't understand who they are, and maybe listen to Putin propaganda and Russian media, will have access to good education, so they will start changing their mind, you know, that they will learn how to be free. So I wish that in Ukraine we will have less corruption or complete gone corruption, so then people will start to believe in their own country and own possibilities and strengths. And I wish that if dream bigger, that all of us would have the same, you know, equal and comfortable platform where to start. That no one will not be somewhere outside, like below, and someone on top. That the resources would be not concentrated in on one hands, but resources will be for all of us, and then we will be relaxed and we can be like working on our creative part.
There we go.
Okay, you answered it a little of my question right now. For me, it was really impressive when you were talking about your boat trip and when you entered and the meeting and with the other IDPs coming around, and what kind of, did it had a feeling of a happening really. And what I'm always thinking about is when you talk about art and artists in collaboration with other artists, what I'm always thinking about is there any collaboration, not only arts, with organizations of civil society, that you have kind of, it's more wider spread. For me, mostly we have some, like we have in Austria, in Europe, we have kind of, okay, some artist collaborations make a happening for themselves, and then it's kind of really too silent and not for many people in civil society kind of accessible. Yeah? Do you have kind of Because I think I heard some kind of that it would be kind of widespread, and that you have kind of arts with different organizations of civil society to move further, to break through the populism. And do you have some ideas to do it?
You know that with artists it's sometimes very hard because we are very ambitional people sometimes, and too egoistic. No, it's true. And it depends because so many people can have so many different ideas how it should be. But at the same time, I experienced that if you take a little bit out your ego and think more kind of like strategically, and you can win much more. For example, when me and BCRC, who supported, started RAFT Crimea preparation, it was like that. I was walking 1 year and kind of like knocking to the door to different organizations, galleries, artistic posh places, and explain them my idea. Everyone was like, oh, no, it's not commercial, we are interested, blah, blah, blah. So I came to BCRC, it was one of the party, I don't know, like always they have. And I just came to Maria Kulikovska, one of the curator of this place. And I was so much into this idea, like I was, burning by this idea. So I was like, explain her whole night, and I draw her maps and like how it should be and blah, 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 blah. So she got affected, She was like, I gave her my virus, my nerve. And then next half year we were like every day walking around in different civil organizations and different places and asked for help, support, money, connection, whatever. Anything. We said like, just start doing something, we don't care. Even if you will give one coin, it's okay. We agree with anything, just let's do something. And we met several strange organizations, for example, which was very strange for me, Crimea, SOS. They was very angry at us. And the main was that, but it's our own topic. It means like they're just like cutting, the problematic topics and like for their own fame. And but it is not the topic, it's the reality. It's like people. We need to think about people who are like more outside of this small kind of like borders and frames. And then I just contacted everyone who I knew. I wrote all emails, like a couple of hundreds emails, like with explanation. And then I remember Goethe Institute answered immediately to us, and they said, we already even jumped into your boat and swimming, so we just want to show our own solidarity. So different organizations show their own face. East SOS helped us a lot, and one girl, she was traveling down and she was mostly arrested as me. So it was, she supported all them, and they could not help with money, but they gave us with equipment. Some gallery helped us with their radio support, so they just like contacted all radio every day and sent like diary what's going on RAFT. So it was collective, it became collective artwork. It not me, I started, I shared with this idea or like with my personal story, but it became platform, and I believe in this. And then in the end, when we had exhibition, I placed a video of Josef Beuys, German artist, who invented social sculpture. And nobody know what is that. And then he explained that it's kind of like meeting point. It's like a place where we change the world, healing process. And for me, this RAFT, it became very symbolical kind of like spot where people met. I remember a crazy story when we were stopped somewhere, I don't know where, in between of nowhere, and waited for something like some news because our raft was destroyed. And then one guy on the bike came with a bottle of wine, and he's like, "Oh, I heard about you. Oh, you cool girls. Let's drink wine. We like your raft. It's wonderful." And then when we arrived to south of Ukraine, people gave us fruits, fish, wine. They celebrated together with us, but some of them they ignored also. So I think like to be united, it's important.
Very good. We have one more comment or question?
Yeah, very briefly. First of all, thank you very much for these extensive answers and this very good presentation. You said you don't give proposals, and that's obvious, that's fully understandable. But you said art is also a place to dream. So may I ask, what is your personal dream about the future of Crimea? Is it bringing Crimea back to Ukraine? Is it more or less diluting the border between Russia and Ukraine, so that it's not so important where you are, but you have the freedom to travel, to do what you like? What would you say is your dream, your personal dream?
I was thinking about this a lot. And I was thinking to create sanatorium. What? Sanatorium. It's beautiful nature there, so everyone can come and just relax. So I was thinking, let's make kind of like kindergarten for all adults from all over the world. No more war, no more heavy discussions, and just like enjoy life. So I actually want to write a book, President of Crimea, which would be me. No, it's a reference to my childhood. We had a very common play in the yards. We dream who we would be, and very often I said I will be president of Crimea, and everyone, all kids, was like, "But Crimea, it's not the country." I'm like, "Okay, I will make it." And I don't know from where I got this idea, but maybe this turbulence that, okay, maybe people want independence there, complete independence. I don't know what is the idea now. And if we could return, I would love to have a real autonomous republic, not like it was that forgotten place, not developed. I would love to develop very, very strongly this area, because, for example, my hometown is one of the oldest towns in the world. It's the culture heritage of the world. I was growing with sculptures what is 3,000 years old, or with the Greek civilization, with the statues. And no one will know about this in Ukraine. So I would love to popularize this area more, and also stop corruption. So maybe then it would be different, but it's obvious also that Crimea is not only Ukrainian part. It is a place of many different nationalities, 170 nationalities living there. So maybe it should be kind of like international, unique place for everyone, for every displaced as well.
I think that is a very, very good last word from you, I would say, and also a very good last vision. And this vision of Crimea is something I very much embrace in my future thoughts and my prayers for Crimea as well, I can tell you.
I would have one more question.
Okay, no, please.
Because I would like to know, since I also very much appreciate that you didn't talk so much, so I want to know if you think there's a difference between Ukraine or Eastern world, Russia, and here, also concerning the art and the artists and the normal life also. And I want to know if you have as a future vision that Ukraine or Russia or the rest of this world, of that part of the world, will become like we are now in Western or Central Europe.
No, but the obvious, you have strong social protection.
Yeah.
That's why people are more relaxed. They know their own price. Look, during the weekends, it's so hard to find any shop. Why? People rest. They know that they have rights to do this, and any employee cannot force. Look at what's going on in Ukraine. People working over 15, 20 hours per day. Sometimes they have only one day to rest. And the salary nowadays, from $100 per month until $400 or $500 per month. And the price is a little bit less than in Europe. So of course, if we are talking about quality of living, I wish to my country to live like here, and to Russians also. Because if to be honest, Russia is not only Moscow and St. Petersburg. They're living okay, quite okay, stressful. But the rest of the Russia, some of them really under conditions. And for example, if I know from my parents, for example, in Crimea, no one doesn't talk about this, but for example, they have only 3 times per week electricity and 3 times per week water. The quality of water is like from dirt. Of course, I wish to all of us to have the quality of living. Then we will not be aggressive to each other, because we will not be jealous simply. Then, when like all of us like here, not somewhere there, then I think it would be something different. I hope that answers it.
So thank you very much. I think we close right now, but Masha is still going to be here, so she's going to be around. We invite you now to a glass of wine and also to some snacks, and please feel free to get up and walk around. She's going to be here. You can ask her whatever you like. She can explain you more about her specific work, what she's doing, why she's doing it again. And I very much want to thank you, Masha, for your practical insights, and not only your insights, not only your practical insights, but also your insights from a practical point of view. Also, I think it's very interesting what you said about collaboration. I think it is also what we try to do. This is also why we invited you, because as an institute dealing with peace, I think it is crucial also to look at all the different angles. And thank you also very much for sharing the very personal sphere as well of creating art, because it is a very personal thing, I have the feeling, to create art and to be an artist as well. It's I think it's very, very difficult to separate it from the personality. I think it somehow can go along. So thank you very much for being here, and I hope that your vision for Crimea becomes the truth one day. So my fingers are crossed, and we're still going to be here to walk around. And yes,
I think we should still say what's happening the next days.
Yeah, Georg, maybe you can tell about the next...
Ganz kurz noch eine Information. Die Ausstellung von Frau Kulikovska ist in der grafischen Lehranstalt in einem Raum dort seit Montag und wird bis Freitag noch öffentlich zugänglich sein. Die grafische Lehranstalt ist in der Leiserstraße 6 im 14. Bezirk. Es wird morgen am Nachmittag, also ab etwa 17:30 Uhr, im Museumsquartier eine Aktion geben von ihr. In diesem Wasserbecken in einem der Höfe wird diese Rettungsinsel, die wir jetzt in der Ausstellung stehen haben, dann dort auch sein, und die Frau Kulikovska wird dort über diese Aktion auch versuchen, darüber zu informieren und Besucherinnen einladen, mit ihr in Dialog zu treten. Ja.
Okay, so please go and visit the exhibition at the Grafische. I say it very loudly so that everyone can hear it. And tomorrow in the evening at 5:30 p.m. there's going to be a performance of Maria Kulikovska at the Museum's Quarter. So we hope to see you there. And please now enjoy yourselves, walk around, look a little bit at the art. There's also outside is also a Ukrainian photographer. Her art is still hanging there. She took pictures from the front line, like the daily life on the front line. It's the pictures outside. The video and the things up in here are from Masha. And please just approach her. She's a very, very easy woman to approach to. Yes. And have a nice evening. Thanks.